What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Fire Medic Adventures from home today. I'm trying to get out to Universal and the Magic Kingdom. I got a couple projects planned. However, it is summertime now in Florida, and the weather sometimes says nay, nay. So if the weather clears up a little bit later, I'm going to get out there and get those filmed. If not, I'm going to have to wait a couple days. Yeah, gotta work around the work schedule and everything else. So, it is what it is. But I figured I got a little bit of time this afternoon. So let's get a vlog from home in, because I saw something come across the news feed the other day. And I'm like, you know what? This is probably going to be something worth noting, because there was an event that happened a while back that just more recently came to light. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to bring about some major changes for Disney World's water parks. Before we get to that, I'd like to say just thank you all for watching my vlogs, my videos, the support you've given to the channel. We are growing slowly, and this is fun to do. It really is. And I said to myself when I started this, as long as this remains challenging and fun, then I will keep doing it. And so far, it continues to be challenging and fun. The minute it's not challenging and not fun, we're done. But we're not anywhere near that. So I see this going forth quite a while. So thank you all for the support. Thanks for helping the channel grow. We're keeping going a little bit at a time. So, oh yeah, and by the way, representing Mission Space, one of my all-time favorite rides at Epcot. We'll do a story on that in the near future, because I got a fun story about Mission Space. And also go over a lot of people ask, what is this thing? How does it work? Should I ride it? Should I not ride it? So it's in the works to do a vlog on Mission Space, like a deep dive. So stay tuned for that one. Anyway, today, I have a discussion here, and a kind of a discussion of a news article, and then I have a video, too, of my own that I'm going to plug into this vlog. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this for a little bit. Try not to go too long, but, want to get the point across, too. There is yet another incident that happened at Disney. Now, this was a little while ago. Wasn't like something that happened a week ago, but this happened a bit ago. Now it's making its way through the courts, it sounds like. And so when that happens, then a lot of this stuff becomes public record. And I saw it move across my news feed the other night, and I'm like, I'm going to take some screenshots of this, because I just have a feeling that this topic is going to bring about probably a pretty significant change to the Disney water parks. And so, what am I talking about? We'll throw this up over here somewhere around here, but here it comes. This is it. This is what I'm talking about right here. No weight limits posted anywhere at Disney's Blizzard Beach Waterpark despite lawsuit related to injury claim. Now, I'm sure those of you that are big Disney park fans knows exactly what this is about. For those of you that might not know, and this is the first time you're seeing this, basically what happened is typical American ignorance, sometimes I'm going to call it. It's our system that any little thing happens and you can sue somebody for it, and that's, granted, we should have a good, judicial system where justice is served if somebody is wronged. However, things have gotten so far out of hand now that you look at somebody the wrong way and they can try to bring suit upon you. And it's just, when you get a society like that that's so lawsuit happy with every little thing, that's honestly what brings about a lot of more boring attractions. If you notice, and you might be like, well, what do you mean boring attractions? Well, look at attractions. Look at how they're being built now. Yes, they're more technologically advanced compared to how they used to be, but think about some of the things that we used to have in the 80s and 90s. And for those, that are a little older than I am, the 60s and 70s. I mean, I never went there, but I would have loved to experience it. But the one that comes to mind is Action Park. For anybody that lives in the New Jersey area, I'm sure you all know Action Park very well. Despite it being one of the most deadliest theme parks and water parks in, I think, U.S. history, it was very popular because it had really cool things. It even had that one loop-the-loop water slide that I think the state shut down after like barely a month of operation because of how many people with injured necks and concussions were coming out of that thing. I mean, it's crazy. And then some of the deaths that happened in the wave pool, and then on the what do you call it, the concrete luge that they had where you sat in this little car and basically they didn't have any brakes. So, but yet despite all that, the place was more popular than ever. And as we moved through the 80s, I can remember going to theme parks, and there was some pretty cool, items out there. Like Indiana Beach used to have this toboggan ride where it was a board. Think of my phone as a flat board here, and underneath were two sets of wheels up front and in the rear, and that board sat on a track, a little bitty track about yay wide. And the wheels were concave, and they sat on the rail. You sat that board on that rail, and you sat on, and there was a little rope up front. You held onto that thing like a toboggan, and down you went. It was like 40 or 50 feet down, and that thing would hit the water, that board would, and you'd skip across the water, and then to the point where either you ran out of gas and it sank, or you had your weight off balance and the thing wiped itself out. They still do have a water ride similar to that at Water Country USA. I did see it there last time I was there a couple years ago. I don't know if it's still there or not, but hopefully it is, because it's not on rails or anything. It's just a flat. It's like a mat you get on, and it skips across the water when you hit the bottom. And then there's the, who can forget the water parks that had the big rope swings where you'd swing out and into the water. I mean, those still do exist to some extent to this day, but Indiana Beach also, they had diving boards out in the middle of Lake Schaefer where there were boats going around and everything, which was part of the water park. I mean, just things were different. People accepted a certain degree of responsibility for what they were doing, and you kind of used your common sense. You knew that if there was a potential to get hurt, I probably shouldn't do this, And unfortunately, as we move forward into the 2000s and that, every slight little scratch and whatnot, people are running to the lawyers. Oh, I'm going to sue. And, theme parks are directly the bullseye for this stuff because, the public has this matter of opinion now that nothing is ever supposed to happen that is what would be considered bad or an inconvenience. Everything now is supposed to run 100% perfect with absolutely no errors, and it's just not realistic, but unfortunately that's what social media, the precedent has been set. Social media has set that precedent where everything is expected to be perfect all the time. You got people freaking out on rides that break down, and what it's important to know that if the ride breaks down, there are so many fail safes in place that the people on that ride aren't going anywhere. It's just we got to, get the ride moving again or get them off the ride, and get them down to safety. But they're not in any danger just sitting there. But people manage to figure out how to lose their minds somehow. And, so moving forward, there was an incident at Blizzard Beach, I guess a couple years ago. And like I said, now it's come to light with the lawsuit and everything. But we're going to move on from this. I'm going to put the next page up. So right here, this was actually taken from Orlando News News 6 WKMG. And this is the guy's name that got injured was Eugene Strickland. It said he filed a lawsuit against Disney for dangerous conditions. Now, think about that for a minute. That means by filing a lawsuit like that, he's saying that the park is so unbelievably dangerous that caused him substantial injury. And what was the dangerous conditions, might you add? Well, let's read on. It says his visit was in July of 2021. So yeah, this is about almost 4 years ago. He chose to ride the downhill double dipper. Now that's the attraction in up for discussion. I actually have a video of myself on that thing, and I'll show you all what it is in case you haven't seen it in a few minutes here. He rode the downhill double dipper despite exceeding the slide's posted weight limit. And notice that's in quotation marks. He weighed around 334 pounds at the time. He's a big guy. While the slide has a limit of 300 pounds. So this starting to sound familiar, similar to the, well, it's not similar because he's still, with us. It's not the tragic story that happened on International Drive, but this is playing out very similarly. According to the lawsuit, Strickland became momentarily airborne as a result of the slide and his inner tube becoming dislodged. And what they mean by that is, I think what they're saying is when you ride this thing, you're sitting on an inner tube, which increases your speed. And probably when he went airborne, the tube flew out from underneath him. As a result, he landed on the surface of the slide and now suffers from permanent catastrophic injuries. Now, this is where I start having a problem with this. I've been in the fire rescue service for a lot of years. I'll be 18 coming up next year. I've seen catastrophic injuries. I don't think that this gentleman had catastrophic injuries. I mean, catastrophic is basically it's catastrophic to me means you're almost to the point of not being in this world anymore. That's catastrophic. Or, something that was so severe that your recovery took months and years and left you permanently disfigured. And then it says he suffers from permanent catastrophic injuries, but these aren't disclosed. Honestly, though, this is just my opinion. If you're going to say you've got catastrophic injuries, I think you should be able to disclose that, because what are you ashamed of? You're claiming that you are injured to the point where you have to bring a lawsuit about, and from what it sounds like, it's going to be pretty substantial. Like this thing, more than likely what will probably happen here is this thing won't go to court. It'll be settled in what they call as a mediation, meaning the two parties, the Mr. Strickland here and his lawyer, and Disney and their lawyers are going to meet somewhere at one of the offices of the whatever attorneys whatever attorney's office they decide to meet at. And there's going to have one group in one conference room and the other group in the other conference room. And they're going to start out. One's going to say, the first party, Mr. Strickland's party, is probably going to say, hey, we want $4.5 million for my client. And then Disney's going to say, we'll give you 10 grand. And then that's how it's going to go for several hours until they basically work this way and they meet in the middle and they come up with an agreement and shake hands. Because here's the thing. When it comes down to these type of cases, nobody wants to go to court. And because when you go to court, there's a winner and a loser every time. And once you enter into that court environment, the chances for reaching an agreement are now off the table. So any money you may have been offered is gone. You forfeited all that on the hopes that you're going to win this court case. And like I said, even though these people may think they have a slam dunk case on either side, it's still a court of law and there's a winner and a loser. And very few people want to take that chance. Both the company that's being sued and the person that's doing the suing, or the other way around. So more than likely, they're going to have a mediation at some point. And they're going to agree on a dollar amount. It's probably going to be pretty high. My guess is it's probably going to be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. I can almost see this coming. And just put a note on that, and we'll see how accurate that is. What change is this going to bring about, you might ask? I honestly think, because I've been to Blizzard Beach, I've been to Typhoon Lagoon, been there a lot of times. Unlike pretty much every other water park I've gone to, it does say in there that the slide does have a limit of 300 pounds. I, to be honest with you, have not seen that anywhere. If it is somewhere in the park, it's not very well disclosed. It's just not. If you go to Aquatica or Volcano Bay, each slide has a very descriptive board out front that tells you exactly what you're going to experience, and it has all of the weight limits on there. And also, what do Aquatica and Volcano Bay, and I'm pretty sure Adventure Island and Tampa all have in common? They all have scales. I know people don't like that, but I can promise you that is the big change that's coming to Disney's Blizzard Beach. You are going to see scales implemented on the majority of these attractions because of this case. Unfortunately, and this is where I go into the using common sense. Common sense would tell you that if you are over 300 pounds, if you're 350 pounds, okay, and you're going to go down a slide that is very steep and has what I call the whoop-de-whoop in the middle, like, it goes down a pretty steep decline, and then you hit a flat spot in the middle, and then you go down another one, something would trigger in my mind that I'm probably going to be going at a very high rate of speed, and this could possibly injure me. But it's just like people don't have that capacity to think anymore. And this slide alone is also set up to where you are pretty much hitting top speed right away because, as you're going to see in my video shortly, you put your feet on a little footboard and it's a racing slide. It's designed to race two people. And the lifeguard, when you're ready, hits the button and that board lowers down with your feet on it. And man, you got all that water that's piled up behind you from sitting there for a minute. And you've got a huge surge of water pushing you down that slide. And even me, I weigh right around 205, 208, somewhere in there. I go fast on that thing. So I can't imagine almost another 150 pounds on top of what I weigh. That guy had to have been flying down that thing. And unfortunately, I've pointed this out several times that I've gone to some of the Disney parks with some of the slides, that downhill double dipper being one of them. But the other one that I honestly witnessed a bunch of people coming out of the slide that looked like they were maybe possibly hurt was that Crush and Gusher over at Typhoon Lagoon. Anybody that's been on that, that's a water coaster. Same thing. That thing has no scales up there, and you're up there getting ready to go on this thing, and you're looking at people getting on these tubes, and you're like, holy cow, is this safe? Like, should they be on this even? And I'm not saying that to be mean, but physics is a reality. Like what is it the quote says? I think Ayn Rand says it. You could ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. I mean, you got to know that if you're 300 plus pounds and you're going to be sitting on an object like an inner tube that's on water that is flowing in a downhill direction, that you are going to be going very fast. It's just like, how does that not sink in with people? And so now we're in this mentality that we have to be told everything. We have to have signs that tell us this. We have signs that tell us that. We can't just make good sound decisions anymore. And the other problem with this thing is Disney, honestly, by not having that posted, they're in a bad spot anyway, because if that lifeguard would have turned that guy away, now they would have been on the damn news for being discriminatory. There literally is no winning in this particular situation at all. You can say, hey man, we're doing it for your safety so you don't get hurt, because I'm sorry, you weigh more than what the slide's recommendation is. And then they're going to hoot, holler, and scream and yell that you're discriminating them and you're fat shaming them, and then you let them ride the ride instead, and then they get injured, and then they're claiming that you allowed them to get injured because you knew that they exceeded the weight limit. Like, there's literally no winning in this situation. And so that's why Disney, I am almost certain, is going to implement scales on most of their slides. And it's going to, especially on busy days, it's going to slow things down because they're going to have to weigh everybody. But these slides, they have a manufacturer's recommended weight limit. And that's not only for the sake of the slide, but it's for the sake and safety of the people on them. And that's the trouble when you try to inclusive everything. You inclusive yourself to getting people injured. I know Disney's promoted the 5 keys and all that stuff. Well, this is part of that, and look at what happened. They're lucky that this resulted in what I'm going to guess is the guy. Again, once you see my video, I go airborne every time I ride that thing, but I also hold the tube tight to me. I mean, I'm not like flying majorly off the slide, but you can see when I show the video, you're gonna like there's there's nothing underneath me for a split second. Like I definitely leave the slide after that midsection. But this guy, I'm sure, probably got some air. The tube went out from underneath him, and he landed on the water slide, probably pretty hard, and then, wound up in the damn splash pool at the end. And I'm sure he probably hurt. I can't say that it didn't. Now, did he have, what they're claiming? Probably not. But who am I to say? They don't have it listed, but I just know that every time something like this happens, they go straight to the catastrophic injury type thing, to gather everybody's emotions and get them charged up. So anyway, because of this, they're going to be weighing people, and people are going to start getting turned away now. And I know people run to Disney because like, oh, they're more size inclusive than all the other parks. Well, this is what happens when you do that. And again, I'm not making fun of people. I'm merely stating facts. I used to be really heavy myself. I was, for a while, pushing 270, and I felt terrible. And I'm like, I got to do something about this. So I went on a journey and lost almost 70 pounds and feel a whole lot better. Honestly, if I can be honest with the camera and everybody else, I still like to get down another 15 yet. Lean out just a little bit more. But it's always that work to do on yourself. And unfortunately, now we just want to take the easy way out of everything and just, we'll ignore physics, we'll ignore reality, we'll just let whoever ride these things. And this is exactly what happens. This is an exact reason why you have to have these metrics in place. And people, I can see it now, the amount of disgust that's going to come out of certain communities towards this, it ain't going to be pretty. Because, like I said, Disney's known to cater to everybody. And now they're not going to be able to do that. And to add to that, on that Crush and Gusher water slide, when last year we were there for the H2O Glow Nights. And it's fun sometimes to watch people come out of that slide because they come out of there with such speed. Some people wipe out in the water and some fly all the way across the splash pool. There was at least 2 or 3 people that, again, they were definitely in excess of probably 300 pounds, and they all came out off the tube on the slide. One of them came out sideways. Another one came out almost head first, and both of them exited the pool. One exited the pool holding her head, and another one exited the pool holding her shoulder like it had been injured. And the lifeguard, it was not comical, but it was like, the lifeguard didn't do anything. This is 2 separate incidents in about 5 minutes. The lifeguard's like, you need to exit the pool now. And they're like, I feel like I hurt myself. Like, get out of the pool. Like, I don't care about your problem. But one young lady had like a pretty significant abrasion on her arm. I mean, you fall off the tube inside that Crush Gusher, and there's certain areas that are where the water blasts up. Those are vents in the slide. You don't want to fall on that. And so, like I said, I think Disney's going to implement these scales pretty soon, and people ain't going to like it. However, these expensive lawsuits can't continue either. Like, something has got to give. If you want them to be all size inclusive, especially in the water park, then if you get injured, then you get injured. You need to keep your mouth shut. Honestly, like, again, I'm not being an asshole. I'm just being real. You want all this to continue where people that are 350 pounds can go down water slides, fine, but you got to keep your mouth shut if you get hurt, because this whole thing is going to invoke some big change, and people ain't going to like it. But that's how it is. These slide manufacturers have to make these things for everybody's safety. When I worked at SeaWorld right after the big shutdown was released, I worked as a lifeguard for a couple months while I was waiting for their paramedic program to get started back up there, as they were getting everybody back hired in. And so I worked as a lifeguard to just do some work over the summer. And they have a couple slides there. One is it's like a big ramp slide where you go down in a 4-person tube and you go up. It's called Kari Kari Curl. And then they have another one that is called Ray Rush. And they have a few more. And all those slides have scales on them. They have a scale at the bottom and a scale at the top. And one of my duties was when I pulled those stations to work at, I was on scale duty, and you just got to be blunt with people. And I was never an ass about it, obviously, but I just kind of pull them aside and say, and I would show them the sign. I'd say, listen, this is the recommendation. You got on the scale. Now, you got on the scale, you can't ride. And now I saw the numbers, right? All the guests would see is a red or green light. And of course, somebody that's 400 pounds gets on there, of course it's going to turn red, when the limit is 280 or whatever. And so I'd privately have a conversation with them away from guests, so you're not, being a loudmouth about this. But, you got to be the bad guy sometimes and turn people away. And I did get pushback from some of these people, and I just say, it's for your own safety. I said, because you know what? If I let you ride this, despite what this says here, and you get injured, I said, next thing you know what's going to happen next? I said, I'm going to be standing in a courtroom with my hand on the Bible and my other hand up in the air saying, I solemnly swear to tell the truth. And I said, I'm not about that. I said, I'm not about getting you injured. And I said, I'm not about putting myself in a situation that's going to jeopardize my job here. And, when you put it like that, some of them would just be like, yeah, I get it. And others would just, call you names and storm off. But personally, I'd rather be called names and have them storm off than say, go ahead, ride it. And then they get injured. And now we got a serious problem. Because unfortunately, probably, Disney's going to handle most of this, but the guard who was on that attraction is probably going to be called into question. Everybody that was working on that attraction is going to be called into question. It's just a mess. And so that's the whole reason behind this topic. That's why I think this is going to lead to big change. So let's get to my video I got here. So we'll throw it up right here. This is me on the downhill double dipper. You can see right there where my feet are against the footboard. And what you do is you put your feet on that thing, and that's the board that the guards lower down. And that's where you get your speed at, because what you don't see is all the water piling up behind me, because the tube you sit on fills the entire slide entryway. And so with that guy being almost 350 pounds, he, without a doubt, had a tidal wave of water behind him. And so you're going to watch. Also, if you've noticed, this is from the GoPro app, and the GoPro app has a speedometer that you can utilize for your videos of things that you're doing that, include speed. This, honestly, kind of worked out for the better, because when I took this 2 years ago, I just did it for fun. But now that this lawsuit came about, I'm going to give you the opportunity to see what somebody of my size, right now I weigh 205, and at this time, probably similar, I was like 208, 210. You're going to see what kind of speed I develop going down this thing. So let's watch.
Oh, God, here we go. Oh, my God.
There's the air time. Splashed out. You can see that a little bit of air time. We'll play it one more time here. And I'll show you again. Watch the speedometer. Right away, 18, 20, 25, almost. It briefly hit 27. I was roughly about 26, 27 miles an hour. And that was just me at 208 pounds roughly. So this guy probably, without a doubt, hit 35 plus miles an hour, without a doubt, which is why he would have left the slide after that area where he levels out for a split second. You do go fast. And like I said, one of the things I like to do on that slide is when you hit the bottom is if you have yourself riding perfectly, you get that tube to skim across the surface of the water so it doesn't like grab the water. You can skim across enough and then slam into that yellow barrier at the end, which is it's fun to do. I just hope they don't tear the slide down because of this, because sadly, that's the other end of this coin, or the other side of this coin that happens when somebody gets injured on a slide or a ride or whatever. They just immediately go to tearing it down, which I don't want that to happen either, because it is a fun slide. And I honestly haven't ridden anything like that anywhere else, to be honest with you. It's, some of the some of the old slides like that are long gone. Aquatica used to have one called Hooroo Run, which was similar to that, but it was a big slide, and it had, was it 3 sections on it? And I think it had one of those big round family raft tubes, and that sucker was another one. If you had it, you know, maxed out on weight, the once that raft hit the last flat section, that raft would fly off the slide, and it would wham land down. You'd get airtime. There was a lot of stories about Hooroo Run. That's what Ray Rush replaced. But ask anybody that has been a fan of Aquatica for a lot of years. They'll tell you about that ride. I actually got to experience it one time back in 2015 when I went to Aquatica. It was fun. And then, like I said, right after that, they tore it out to put in Ray Rush. But yeah, hopefully this doesn't lead to the closure of this thing, because I don't want to see it close. But also, you know, people need to be safe too. And people need to do some thinking for themselves. Like, there has to also be a point, signs aside, that when you look at something, you just got, like, your brain has to say, man, I think this probably might not be for me, or this looks a little dangerous. I don't know if I should do this or not. Like, it just, at some point, you know, we got to get back to common sense, which I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen or not, because, you know, the internet does all our thinking for us nowadays, and then we just blame everybody else when we get injured, which sucks. Which is why the new Six Flags, was it Quidia, is going to have the new Falcons Flight roller coaster. They could never build something like that here in the States. But you talk to people that either live over there or they go visit over there, they don't have a society that files lawsuits for every little stupid thing. They basically have it in their laws that if you want to try something, you're going to assume all risks. Now, if something absolutely negligent happened, like they neglected to maintain the roller coaster and the thing fell apart for whatever reason, or they didn't maintain the brakes and the brakes failed and it caused injury, that's different. But people willingly getting on there, knowing what kind of roller coaster that thing is, that's their responsibility that they're taking. And again, that's why some of these theme parks overseas can have some really cool attractions and some really unusual things, because they're not governed by the same bullcrap that we are governed by, meaning like you can't just file a lawsuit on people because you feel like it, or because, oh, you got a hangnail, or somebody scared you, or something scared you, therefore I'm going to sue. And sadly, if we don't get away from that mentality here in the States, we're not going to have anything like really, really cool. It's just going to be things that are like, it's okay, but it's just going to be there, you know? I mean, look at water park slides. They are cool, but man, some of them are nothing like what they used to be. You know, when you went to a water park back in the day in the 80s and 90s, you just went to have fun, and, you know, you just used your own good judgment. I still go, look at Action Park. I mean, that place is that just blows my mind, that place. I mean, that would have been cool to experience that. It's sad that what happened there, but despite that happening, people still flooded that place. Like, they just came there all the time. People loved it. So anyway, that's today's discussion. Let me know what you think about it. Do you think Disney's going to make this change, or do you think they're just going to roll with it the way it is? Again, I think we're going to see an article in the next month or so, couple months, that Disney's going to close both those parks again, one at a time, and that's probably what's going to happen. They're all going to be getting scales put on there, or they're going to start doing it rather quickly, and then that's going to be the next big thing that's reported on. Disney's got scales on their slides now. It's going to happen. But they have to protect themselves. You can't be handing out $1 million lawsuits every time either, because people fail to use common sense and then blame it on the park, you know. The park was not unsafe. The park was safe. Those slides are inspected all the time. I know that from working at Aquatica. These slides, everything has to be inspected nonstop to maintain the certificate of operation, and they have to be tested daily. What they didn't plan for is somebody 350 pounds getting on that thing. And then the lifeguard also not saying no and saying, listen, I can't let you ride this. That's what happened. The park is safe, and that's why I don't like the way that reads either, because it makes it sound like the park is in disrepair and not safe. No, everything's fine there. It's a person made a very bad decision, and that decision was allowed by people letting him do this. And so that's what ends up happening. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, everybody. I'll see you soon. Have a fantastic rest of your day. It's been the truth. It's been actual. And I hope you found this satisfactual. See ya.